The sky still held the last thread of daylight when I parked in front of the house I had sacrificed a decade to afford. My muscles relaxed, expecting quiet satisfaction after a long shift. Instead, a shrill scream cut through the silence. My front door stood wide open, swinging slightly, as if the house itself were gasping. Inside, 6 children I barely knew sprinted through rooms I hadn't even finished furnishing. My groceries were raided, drawers emptied, toys scattered across polished floors I had installed 2 days earlier. A suitcase sat by the stairs with a note taped boldly on top. "You'll handle this. You're the responsible one." The handwriting was unmistakable. My sister hadn't asked for help. She had made a decision on my behalf. My dream home had become her solution. Still stunned, I stepped outside to collect myself before dialing her number. She answered with a breezy tone, as though I were interrupting her spa day, not dealing with 6 unsupervised children tearing apart my house. She claimed she needed time to breathe, framing her abandonment as self-care. When I demanded a pickup date, she scoffed and said parenting was emotionally taxing, as if responsibility were optional. Her confidence grew with every excuse, and she spoke like she had signed a contract on my behalf. Then came the line that froze me. "You don't have kids, so you can manage them better than I can." She hung up before I could respond, leaving me with screaming children and a truth I didn't want. My sister believed my life existed to fix hers. Dinner became a disaster before I even reached the plates. The oldest argued about vegetables, the youngest dumped cereal across the table, and another demanded juice like a tiny dictator. Every attempt at order was met with resistance, tantrums, or sticky fingers. After forcing something resembling a meal, I tried ushering them to bed, only to discover bedtime was a foreign concept. By midnight, my living room resembled a carnival. By 2 a.m., they were still wide awake, laughing at a volume reserved for stadiums. At 3 a.m., they blasted cartoons loud enough to rattle picture frames. My bedroom, once a sanctuary, felt like a flimsy barrier against chaos. Sleep was impossible, not from noise, but from the sinking realization that my house no longer belonged to me. I wasn't a host. I was captive. The next morning, my phone rang before the coffee machine finished brewing. A stern voice demanded to know why my children arrived at school without lunches, permission slips, or medication forms. Confused, I drove there, only to be greeted with impatient sighs and pointed looks. The receptionist addressed me by name before I introduced myself. My sister had already filed documents naming me as legal guardian, complete with my address and signature I never provided. Staff members spoke as if I had been negligent for months, lecturing me about responsibilities I didn't know existed. I stood there, stunned, realizing she hadn't simply dropped her children on me, she had transferred her identity onto me. My life had been rewritten without consent, and now strangers expected me to perform a role I never agreed to audition for. At noon, the doorbell rang. A woman with a clipboard stood on my doorstep, her expression neutral, but her tone sharp. She was investigating a report of child abandonment. My name was the accused. My sister had filed a complaint claiming I refused to care for her children after begging me for assistance. Each lie had structure, dates, and invented conversations to make her look desperate and me uncaring. I tried explaining, but every sentence felt like stepping into a trap. One wrong word, and I risked being labeled unfit or hostile. The social worker inspected the house, documenting everything, including the mess I hadn't created. It was clear my sister wasn't overwhelmed. She was strategically offloading consequences. I wasn't protecting children. I was defending my character from her narrative. I called my parents, expecting sense, maybe intervention. Instead, they insisted on a family meeting. The moment I arrived, my sister burst into tears, portraying herself as a fragile mother on the brink of collapse. She spoke of sleepless nights and emotional strain, carefully omitting the part where she vanished without warning. My parents absorbed every word, nodding like jurors already convinced. When I tried to explain, my mother accused me of selfishness, suggesting that successful people forget family. My father questioned why I was making life difficult when I had space and income. They weren't listening. They had chosen convenience over truth. I wasn't their child anymore. I was their solution, their safety valve, their unpaid caregiver, sentenced without trial because refusing responsibility was interpreted as cruelty. The turning point wasn't explosive. It was silent, methodical. Instead of arguing, I gathered proof. Messages, school documents, and every record showing I had never agreed to guardianship. I forwarded everything to the social worker with a concise statement. I was never consulted. No emotion, no apologies, just facts. When she called back, her tone had shifted. She asked whether my sister had verbal or written permission. Neither, I answered. For the first time, someone listened. The burden began lifting from my shoulders. I realized responsibility isn't assigned by blood. It is accepted by choice. And I hadn't chosen. My sister mistook endurance for compliance. She forgot that silence isn't agreement. It's a warning. That day, I stopped being an option. A formal hearing was scheduled. My sister arrived expecting sympathy. Instead, she faced documents proving her fabrication. Officials questioned her accounts, challenged her signatures, and exposed discrepancies she couldn't explain. Her confident posture wilted. Custody was suspended pending evaluation, and the children were placed in supervised care while her motives were investigated. Suddenly, I wasn't the villain she was. The family who once lectured me now avoided eye contact, embarrassed by their blind allegiance. That evening, I walked into my house, finally silent, finally mine. No toys on the floor. No accusations. Just space to breathe. I didn't celebrate. I simply reclaimed what should never have been stolen, my life. Winning wasn't triumph. It was release.